My name is Jorge Plasencia. I'm the co-founder, CEO of a marketing communications firm based in Miami. It's good to see several of my colleagues here and several of my clients in the audience. And I want to just take a moment. Can I have a round of applause for Claudia Romo Edelman? Claudia, I always say it, she's a force of nature, and always lucky to be in her company. This is now I think the 5th year that Claudia asked me to moderate a panel, and every year we have great fun kind of coming up with a topic. And this year's topic, I think, is so timely given some of the conversations that have been happening over the last day, including the one you just heard with Christina, who's amazing, proud to say a Republica Havas alum, and just doing amazing work at Telemundo. This panel is called Using Your Platform for Impact, right? And obviously, each one of us have a platform. Each one of us have a voice. Each one of us have our sphere of influence, right? And how do we use that for good? And when we were curating this panel, and as I look into the audience, there's so many of you that are doing this every day, and that I'm, just honored to know and to respect so many of you in the audience. But the folks up here are folks that are a cross-section of our country that are doing this every day. From the largest member organization, NGO in the country, to the organization that represents us in Hispanic inclusion in corporate America, to just leading the way in content and now in wealth, and last but not least, in everything technology, right? Right here you have leaders that have been doing this for their careers. So I'm going to go ahead and just really quickly, because I want to get into the conversation, but really quickly just introduce from left to right, to my left to right. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the folks up here. Yvette Peña. Yvette, many of you know, celebrated career. Yvette is currently Vice President of Audience Strategy of the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, again, the largest member organization in the country, AARP. Yvette, great to have you here.
Un placer estar aquí contigo, con este panel y con todos ustedes.
Okay, Sid Wilson. Sid, again, after an incredible career here in New York on Wall Street, now leading HACR, the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility, as its president and CEO. Sid, so great to have you here. Beatriz Acevedo, Beatriz, another force. She, you all know Me Too, right? She's the creator, the founder of Me Too, and now she leads Suma Wealth as its CEO, and she also leads her family foundation that her father founded. In his memory, she leads the Acevedo Foundation, so it's great to have you here. And last but not least, she's been in the C-suite of pretty much a Fortune 10, 20 company, and McKesson, and is a director at Sorensen Communications, and that's Maria Lenzi. Maria. So Yvette, let's start with you. I have the privilege to get to work with Yvette, my team and I, at Republica Havas, and we get to witness firsthand what she calls heart work, right? The work that AARP does with its members and prospective members is just extraordinary in so many different areas of important for the 50-plus group, right? Yvette, speak to me a bit about how at AARP, with your heart work, how you make this impact, right? How you use your platform every day. And I see you all the time, busting down walls and barriers and raising your voice and using that platform that you have and that bully pulpit you have for change.
Yes, a lot of hard work is done here between me and my colleagues who are back there. I'll give a big shout out. There's a whole AARP role. Thank you. First, I want to say gracias to Jorge and just honored to be here with this panel. Who gets us into the United Nations building on Latina Equal Pay Day? I'm gonna mimic DJ Khaled. Who did? Claudia did. So I am a proud Afro-Latina from New York City, first-generation daughter of immigrants from the Dominican Republic. And yes, I do hard work for AARP and for the Latino community. At AARP, we are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is intrinsic to our organization in order to serve the 50+ and the multi-generational families in all 50 states, U.S. territories, y Puerto Rico. We're the largest nonpartisan and lobbying organization in the United States with the support of a diverse board. And let me tell you something, we have 4 Hispanic board members. Our board chair at AARP is Boricua. Claudia knows this. Claudia actually moderated a panel with our Latino board members. It was a very proud day at AARP. We have an Afro-Latino and 2 Latinas. And some of these board members were brought to us by the one and only Sid Wilson. So, you know, you talk about collaboration and lifting people up, that's Sid. And so at AARP, you know, and in my career, it's always been rooted in service. And for the past 7 years that I've been at AARP, I've been serving. For us, it's to serve, not to be served. And we live and breathe our mission, which is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. So I, along with this team, we live and breathe this mission. And we broadcast it to Latinos across the country, not just on Hispanic Heritage Month, but 365 days a year with what we do nationwide and with a lot of our state team members, and we have a lot of them here today, to ensure that we give the tools and resources and information that are relevant to them. We create unique programming. And at AARP is a very large organization. If you go to our websites, aarp.org, aarp.org/en español, there's a lot of information. So how do we sum it up in a relevant way? We speak to salud, dinero, y amor. Health, wealth, and self-fulfillment. That is how I go out and I talk. Someone stopped me this morning, I think it was Beth, and she goes, I want to become a member, tell me more. And I mentioned those words, I am going to meet with Beth, because that's the easiest way to communicate in a relevant way. And we take pride in giving out information and resources all the time on our websites and on all our platforms. And for Salud, we are what Claudia calls, we are factivists. AARP is data rich, and we talk about health issues that affect Latinos, and we ensure that they're aware of AARP resources and have access to them also in Espanol. When it comes to dinero, as we know, financial security is extremely important to Latinos because they age into retirement. And one of the most important tools that we offer is something called Money Map. It's in English and in Spanish, and it's a tool that helps you prepare financially for any emergencies. It's a very important tool. It's easy to use, and all of this is at no cost. You don't have to be a member to engage with AARP. And for Amor, how many of you are caregivers in the audience? And if you don't caregive, you will at some point. And at some point, everyone here will be cared for. And what's important to understand is that you are not alone. It is very difficult. I've been a long-distance caregiver since I was in grammar school, right? So we have resources. My job is to push this out. AARP.org/caregiving, aarp.org/cuidar. Tools and resources to help you navigate the very difficult task of caregiving. That for me is under the Amor pillar. Why? Because we take care of our loved ones. So our job is to get this information out digitally, on TV, word of mouth, through our thousands of volunteers, and through the tireless work that is being done by our AARP state teams, 50 states, U.S. territories, y Puerto Rico, every single day. So think about this. Knowledge is power. And during the pandemic, during natural disasters, AARP is there in community. And again, not just on Hispanic Heritage Month, 365 days a year, because this is key to the survival of nuestra comunidad, nuestra gente.
Sid, building on what you just heard from your fellow Dominicana, pura cepa. So, your role is so important, and you heard Yvette say that, those board members were recommended to Joanne Jenkins and to the team at AARP. You were one of the folks that did that. I just got here this morning from, and I'm taking a little leave from, and I'll be back to it in a bit, PBS board meeting, right? Where I have the honor now and privilege to serve on the board at PBS. And I see the importance of our voice and my voice and our, I see the importance of my seat on that board, because I'm representing each and every one of you and millions of people out there, right? And making sure that that PBS over time, reflects our country, right? Your role is that. Your role is that, working with CEOs, with C-suites, and making sure that we're represented, that we're included. Tell us about how you make impact.
Let me first start by saying, buenos días, mi gente. It's so great to be back into the familia, and I do have a Claudia story, but you're going to see how it comes together with what I want to share. Is that I know probably the majority of people in this room, and for those that I don't know, I look forward to getting to know you. But of course, I'm Sid Wilson. I'm president and CEO for HACR, the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility. We've been around for 36 years. We're a coalition-based organizations of 14 very prominent U.S. Hispanic organizations. I do want to recognize at least two of our board members that are here. I know that mi hermano Marco Davis, CEO of the CHCI, is over there, and right in front of here is one of my heroes, el doctor, Dr. Juan Andrade.
There he is.
And a true hero. I hope you all see his PBS documentary that they did about Dr. Andrade and his life is incredible. But I share this from the standpoint that one of the things that I can actually say, I think I even learned this from Dr. Andrade many years ago when I was leading the Dominican American National Roundtable, is that we have to have courageous moves in order for us to move the needle and make impact in the work that we're doing. Because at HACR, our mission is to advance Hispanic inclusion in corporate America, working with many corporations, working with many CEOs, but also getting to the table. Just 2 days ago, for the first time, HACR was at the table at the Wall Street Journal CEO Council. I was actually there with Richard, who's also a great leader, an incredible ally in this, and I'm also the only nonprofit CEO on the governing committee of the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. And I share all of this because this all started by making a decision to say, how can we make impact when it comes to advancing Hispanic inclusion in corporate America? Step one was recognizing that it is so important for us to be here today to share our best knowledges and great ideas. But then we have to make sure it doesn't end here. How do we take this back into our communities and into corporate America, particularly in gatherings where diversity, equity, and inclusion are not discussed? That is where we have to share that message. I'll share a funny story, but it's a true story. Last May, I was at a CEO dinner at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and they were going around the table, and each CEO was giving out their names, and then they came to me, and as they were giving their names, I said, "Mi nombre es Sid Wilson. Soy Latino, Afro-Latino, Dominicano de pura cepa, ya tú sabes. I'm president and CEO of this, y presidente de la Asociación Hispano para Responsabilidad Cooperativa." And then I ended by saying, if you speak to me in language I understand, it goes to my head. Speak to me in my language, it goes to my heart. And if you don't know what I just said, pull out your Google Translate, because it's not my job to assimilate to you, it's your job to acculturate to us.
Amen to
we
that.
are the ones that are growing.
Amen to that.
And at that point, I got the message. I got a bunch of emails afterwards. Can we talk to you, et cetera, et cetera. But I knew I made an impact.
Right.
And so we have to be courageous to go into settings where we may be the only one in the room.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean that we should be silent in these rooms. If you're in that room, you belong in that room. And just know that as you are in these rooms, we carry the weight of what we need to do to make that difference. 5 years ago, one of HACR's initiatives was to ask ourselves, where should we be, and where can we start making those impacts at these conferences, whether it's the Milk Institute Global Summit, whether it's these other major conferences. 5 years ago, it was virtually unheard of for Latinos to go overseas to advance Hispanic inclusion. And some of you heard the story. I crashed Davos 5 years ago. That's actually where I met Claudia. And I crashed it. She looked at me and says, "What's your name?" I'm Sid. She said, "I'm Claudia." I said, "Oh my God, so I'm Latino. We're the only Latinos here in Davos." And then after that, we stayed in contact. We said, let's go back to Davos the year later prepared. And as many of you know by now, we went back that next year. And to this day, it's still the only Latino session that we do at the World Economic Forum. And I really commend my dear friend Claudia for her leadership and her vision, because then that was the birth of the Hispanic Promise. And it gave us that opportunity to make that case. And, at one of these sessions, when you're in a global setting, because remember, these are mostly white men, only 20% of the people that go there are women. There are so few people of color or Latinos that go, it's really small. But I said, if I were to name you a country that's the 5th largest economy in the world, according to our friends at the Latino Donor Collaborative, who do great research, that's dollar denominated, so there's no currency risk. That's AAA rated, so there's no sovereign debt risk. That's in a strong regulatory environment, so there's no regulatory risk. That has an average age of 28, a mode age of 11, and that's growing faster than every G20 country. Would you take those dollars that you're investing in Canada, in Turkey, in India, in South Korea, and put that in a country that dollar for dollar gets you the best ROI? Of course, everyone's eyes open up. I said, well, I just described to you the power of Hispanic inclusion. I just described the U.S. Latino community, not just Latinos throughout North America, just all of them. And so I share from the impact standpoint that as we take all these best practices that we're sharing, let's make sure we go out into the community. Claudia and I will be back in Davos in just a month, and with some of you that may be there as well. But we're looking forward to continue to make that impact, because we have to make sure that we're sharing it not only among ourselves, our best practices, but when we are the only one in the room, we don't be silent in that room.
We're clear how you make impact. Got it. Thank you, Sid. Okay, so Beatriz, Me Too, obviously amazing what you have done with that, and now what you're doing with our youth, right? With Suma Wealth, and you talk about double bottom line, which I love. Can you speak to us about that and speak to us about how you're making impact?
Yes, of course. Buenos dias, everyone, and thank you so much for the invitation, Claudia. Another year to be here. It's such an honor. I place all my bets on youth and on Latinas, talking about equal pay day for Latinas today, and seeing all the stats on the positive side of what incredible contributions we're making to the country, and that there's a lot of work that we still have to do. But the youth gives me a lot of hope. Back in when I founded Me Too 10 years ago, U.S.-born Latinos have a really tough time in this country. We've heard that phrase, ni de aquí ni de allá, and I really wanted to build a digital media company where they felt they were de aquí y de allá. But traditional media, as we saw earlier, from Stacy's stats, from Claudia's stats, does not portray us the way we should be portrayed. So I'm a firm believer of not waiting around. I'm an entrepreneur. I know there's plenty in the room, because yesterday we all stood up. So we have that anxiety to fix things that are not right. So instead of waiting for media to see our value, to waiting for venture capital to believe in us, to invest in us, us entrepreneurs in the room, we want to build those things. So if we're not invited to the tables, we like to build the tables. So in the case of Me Too, it was exactly that. I am a Latina who is white passing and who's had a lot of privilege in my lifetime, and I want to acknowledge that. And as that, I was one of the very few Latinas who were showrunners in Hollywood. There's only 1% of us that get to tell our authentic stories in Hollywood. And every time I would meet with a network president or CEO, they would tell me how lucky they felt to know me because they could not find the talented Latinos in Hollywood. So this is 30 years ago. So the narrative has not changed one bit. And I would say, that's odd, because when I go back to my office, there's plenty of talented Latinos, now Academy Award-winning Latinos that back in the day could not get their phone calls answered by networks or by agents that say you don't give them an opportunity. So this broken bridge has happened for many, many years, not just in Hollywood, but in many other industries. So with Me Too, I really wanted to prove, I guess, to Hollywood that there was so much talent in our community that they didn't need to, that if they didn't believe in us, we would show them that the numbers were there. We would incubate talent. We would incubate stories. We would show them that we had massive audiences, larger audiences at some point than their own TV networks. And yet the things did not change. One thing that I'm proud of with Me Too was that it was definitely an incredible brand and continues to is for Latinos to feel that there was a place where they belonged, right? US-born, English-dominant Latinos who are still very proud of where they come from could really find this content to share with their friends who were not Latinos and show how, things were growing up. So I'm always focused on youth because this generation, particularly Gen Zs and younger millennials, are those influencers, those Sherpas, those navigators of their families and communities. So thinking about impact, if you give them the tools to succeed, they will in turn turn around and give those tools to their community. From Suma, which is my latest startup, which is all economic empowerment for young Latinos and their families, we see how from our 615,000 users, who's counting, they manage about 3.5 financial accounts for their family members. So they tell you that they're not comfortable managing their own finances, yet they're tasked with managing the finances for other family members, particularly older parents, tíos, tías, abuelitos, and their younger brothers, sisters, sobrinos, sobrinas. So youth, for me, is the way to create impact. I think that is where I have placed all my bets on the media side, and now I'm placing all my bets on the fintech side, and obviously on the philanthropic side, leaving a generation of young Latinos ready to lead when we are no longer around is really, really important.
Double bottom line?
And double bottom line, of course. Yesterday we heard Richard say, this generation cares about where you stand. This generation will pay more for a product or service if you stand for something that is values aligned to what they think and they believe in. So it's not just doing good in the world, but it's also doing good for your bottom line. So make sure that whatever you do has that double bottom line. And there's plenty of data out there that you can search that will show you that a company that cares about doing better in the world does better financially. So double bottom line, very important for anybody building companies or who leads companies.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least in this kind of these different statements, Maria, you have had a unique perspective being in the C-suite at a Fortune 20 company and kind of having that perspective as a CTO, right? Who affects more of a company and the entire organization and the growth of the infrastructure of that company than technology and the CTO. So give us your perspective of how you, in your incredible career, have created impact.
Well, thank you and good morning. And thank you guys for being here, and what a great testament that we've heard, right? The dimension that I will bring you is that of a corporate America. So I've grown up in a Fortune 10 the majority of my career, and I have been an executive at a Fortune 10 for the past 10 years. And I will be honest and transparent and tell you that I grew up as an American executive, not as a Latina executive. And it's an important distinction because 7 years ago, I had an incredible experience that really pushed me to understand how important it is to make my Latina-ness a priority. And that was in a panel at AT&T, 1411 at the time. That was a lady came after the panel and told me, I am so excited to go home and tell my son that a person with an accent can be an executive in corporate America. And I was flabbergasted because up until that point, competence had been the greatest equalizer at my table, and I had never realized that an accent should be a limiting factor for any one person. But I had been privileged because I had been in technology, and in technology, you are good, and you can't fake that.
Exactly.
So, what did it tell me? It told me to do more with my time because up to that point, guys, I had been the typical stereotype American executive, and my priorities had been different. So how do I use my platform today? It really raised my awareness to how am I using my time. And what I realized is my platform and your platform is whatever table you sit at. That's your platform. And when you look at that platform, if you are the only one and you're proud of that, you're not looking at it correctly. We cannot be proud to be the only ones at any one table anymore. When I became CTO for McKesson, the Fortune 7 company in the United States, I looked up and only 8.4% of all American CTOs are women. They don't even track Latinos. And only 3.1% of all executives in the technology sector are Latinos. That's not numbers to be proud of. So what's my job? My job is to look and say, and I did, what's my representation at my table? And when I hired a VP in technology and he was Latino and his pay was significantly less, and it was his pay, not even her pay, I went to HR and I said, why? We have similar roles, we're performing similar work, they should get paid the same. Oh, but that's a big jump for them. I don't care. So, yes, there is that Latina that comes out for sure. So, thank you. What I would tell you is something that you heard earlier, courage. Absolutely. Courage is not absence of fear. Courage is to act even in spite of fear. And it is scary, right, to put yourself out on a limb, and you might fail. If you stand up for your principles, somebody might not stand there with you. But that's okay, because look around. We all here are standing with you. Absolutely. So my challenge to you, similar to the challenge that wonderful lady gave me inadvertently 7 years ago, is to raise others up. Who are you mentoring right now? I don't care what level, where you are. If you yourself are not talking to another Latino, Latina today, look yourself in the mirror. If you are in corporate America like I am, and when I go to a table and I notice that things are missing, I tell my peers, why are you not hiring more Latinos? Absolutely. Well, there's no talent. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, let me introduce you to 20 different entities that will introduce you the talent, because talent is here right now. And you know what, guys? Don't let anybody mentor you or coach you anymore. Tell them to give you the stretch roles. You'll make it happen. So my perspective from corporate America is simple. It's, guys, let's break the standards, do it correctly, understand the culture that you go into, right? I'm very professional. I use data like I did with you. I'm making sure that the conversation is relevant to the audience that I'm speaking with. But I am not apologizing for making sure that now we're helping each other out, because that's the legacy that we've talked about that we need to leave behind.
Thank you, Maria. So we have a few minutes left, and in these few minutes, I'm just going to go around and for our youth. You talked about what happened to you 7 years ago when you had that moment. It kind of hit you in the face of, you know what, I need to be intentional about this. I have family members that had to shun their culture growing up, right? My generation and younger, we could be loud, proud about our culture, and it's accepted for the most part, right? And as a community, we do it. So I'm just going to go around 30 seconds, please. If we could just what advice would you have for the young folks that are here and that are watching us? What advice would you have on how they can use their platform for change? Just 30 seconds on what you would do that's like tangible. What could they do if you could just give them 30 seconds of advice because it's worked for you? And Beatriz, if we could start with you.
I mean, I give this advice always, whether they're young or old, just exactly what Maria was saying, lean very hard into your Latinidad. I mean, that has been my superpower in every room that I've been. And I think it's very important to just be proud, know the facts, know the data, know that you are not charity, know that you are the biggest opportunity in this country. We've heard it many, many times yesterday and today, and walk into those rooms with that swagger, with that confidence, with that head up high, knowing that there's nobody more valuable than you when it comes to growth and future-proofing any company in this country.
Oh, love it. Sid, 30 seconds advice.
One is quickly, remember this, at HACR, we promote not just DEI, we promote DEI square. Double down on diversity, equity and equality, inclusion and intentionality. And so understand that. Secondly is, for those of you that are in corporate positions, and you're in what I call the power positions, you're in revenue generating positions, you're in legal or technology, be careful when they tap you and say, can we move you over into what I call the non-power positions? The reality is that the power positions is what's going to make you a future Beatriz, a future Maria, a future Yvette, leaders that are really breaking through into those positions. And then lastly, always make sure that you bring your authenticity. And when you plan to achieve and dare to exceed, then great results you will see.
You're someone that mentors the youth all the time. What advice would you give?
I would start by saying do what you love and do it with amor and do it with integrity. Why? Because integrity follows you everywhere, right? No matter where you are, at what stage, especially with social media now. And be authentic, be yourself. There's people that have stopped me here today. I did one post on LinkedIn, find it, where I talked about my curly hair journey, my authenticity, how I feel free, how as an executive Latina, a vice president, I can show up the way that I am. Be authentic and own that Latinidad. That is my superpower. It is your superpower.
Maria.
Yes, I would tell you, you heard great advice already. So for me, for you, it's simple. Competence is a great equalizer. Define your own success. I think the youth today has so many competing priorities being pulled in every direction. Don't quiet everything out for a second, stay true to yourself and define your own success. And lastly, please, we need to change the dynamic of how we treat each other. We tend to be a lot of very critical of each other. When somebody comes to you and says, so-and-so is not doing this right, you should answer, how do we help him? How do we help her? That will change everything for all of us.
Out of time, but I want to say that it's been a privilege for me to moderate this panel with these four extraordinary human beings that are also extraordinary Latinos and Latinas, Latino and Latinas. And thank you, Claudia. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to get these folks together, to be able to get their wisdom out into our community. And there's no stopping. There's no stopping. And so with that, thank you all. Good to see everyone. Thank you.